Hey guys, it's Techo Freak here, and welcome to episode 37 of my custom story creation tutorial for Amnesia Rebirth. And today we're going to be talking about effects. So this is a little bit of a follow-up on the sequence videos, kind of. The next few episodes I'm going to try and tailor around using the sequences we learned in the last episode and kind of start using it for things that would be convenient to use. But if you didn't watch that video on sequences, very important topic, very good one to learn and to master. So I would recommend you guys to go check it out. Although you can just copy the code if you haven't seen it yet that we're going to do today. I'm going to just do a quick run through of the sequence stuff. But I'm not going to go too much into detail about the sequence. So just catch up on that last video if you haven't already. With that said, today we're going to be talking about effects. We're going to be talking about how we can, create different kinds of effects you see throughout the game, like screen shaking. You got blur, you got like nausea, you got a few ones. You got like fade to black and stuff like that. So I'm going to show you guys a few of the most popular ones. There are a ton of effects that we can talk about, and I had actually planned on showing you guys all the effects that we'd be talking about, but I decided not to do that because there were so many. There were so many, and I didn't want to talk about every single effect. So I'm just going to show you a few of the more popular ones, and seeing how we use those, you should be able to play around with the remaining ones. But there's just so many that I'm just going to show you a few of the main ones. And with that said, let's go ahead and get started. I have my CodeLight application up here, one thing I want to note, I'm going to have this in full screen. Normally I like to zoom in on the screen, but some of these have a lot of variables, so I kind of want to just have the whole screen showing here. So I won't be zooming in this episode, and you'll see when the lists come out with all the descriptions and stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. So first thing you guys want to do is make sure you include this option right here, the helper effects.hps. This has a lot of the effect related scripts that we're going to be running here, and make sure that this is included at the top here. And with that, let's just quickly cover the sequences we did in the last episode. So in the last episode, we went over sequences. So what we pretty much do is we make a sequence function here. And then in the beginning of that function, that sequence function, we create we run a function called sequence begin here. And then we run sequence end at the very end of it. And then in between, we can run these sequences step by step, however we want to. We can pause, we can just print and continue. We can pretty much do whatever we want here. Today, we won't be using all of these, and I'm not going to explain all of these. Again, I would recommend you guys watch the last episode. We're going to cut out pretty much all of this here, and we're just pretty much going to use this one right here, the do step and wait. So I want to play an effect, and then I want to wait 5 seconds, and then I want to clear the effect and play another effect. So that's pretty much what I want to do, and just kind of showcase some of the effects that are in the game. But there's a lot more that I would encourage you guys to play around with past that. So with that, we'll also leave this debug message here. I actually do want to use the debug message here, and just so we can visually see what's happening. The way we're gonna trigger it is on a collide area here. So we have the function call right here, sequence test, that starts our sequence for us. So when we step in this collide area, if I go back to my level editor, I'll show you the collide area. This is the trigger area here. It's called trigger 1, and then there's a collide callback here. And when the player collides with the entity here, with this trigger area, we call the function on collide player trigger 1, and that goes back to our CodeLight application here, and it will run this one. And when alt state equals 1, which is when the player enters the area, we want to go ahead and execute this code. We only had enabling the players running in this code right here. But we were also going to run the sequence test here so that we could visually see our effects start kicking in once we step in this trigger area. And if it's any other state, if the player left the area, whatever, don't do anything, just return false. And we're returning false because we're only running this once. So there's the usual explanation of the trigger area here. So with that, we can go ahead and start now. Again, I'm just going to kind of showcase some effects. Some of the effects I kind of just grabbed also from the developers, but they should all be working here, and you guys can play around with the numbers, see what kind of effects what kind of things you can get to happen. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So right here in the if sequence do step and wait. So we're gonna go ahead and play the effect that we want, and then we're gonna wait 5 seconds. So what's the first effect? Let's do a screen shake effect. So the function for that is effect underscore, and then we're gonna do FOV underscore shake. So most of the effects have like multiple functions you can use. The basic one is always the shake start, and then most of them have a fade out function. So to start it, you would use this one, and you'd put in whatever values that are available there. And then to end it, we go ahead and do shake fade out, or whatever it is, fade out. Let me scroll down a little bit here, and yeah. So we're gonna do this one first. So we're gonna do the start shake. And a note before we put it in here, I want you guys to take note of this value right here. So this function returns an int. That's an integer. This is important, and I'll explain why it's important to note this for some functions. But just take note that this returns an integer here, and that's going to be important in a little bit here. So we're going to go ahead and hit enter to use it. So now we need to put some values here. There was a description of all the values there if you needed to see it. So if there was any ones that you were curious about, you can read it right there. And a lot of these effects are pretty well detailed in what they do. So I'd recommend you guys read those descriptions for those functions. Now the screen shake amount, this is how much we want the screen to shake. So let's just put 1.0f. And I might run through these pretty quick because we do have a good number of effects to run through here, and there's more effects in the game as well. So we're going to do 1.0 here. And then time, that is the amount of time that we want it to fade in, I believe. So let's do 1.0f, or that's the amount of time it takes to reach full intensity. If you read the description, it should say that. And then we'll do comma space, and then we'll do fade in time, how long it takes for the effect to fade in. So we're going to do 1.0f, and how long it takes to fade out. We're just going to do 1.0f here as well. I did a lot of basic ones for this. Frequency, it's kind of like the way that the camera is going to be like shaking. Again, I'd look at the description for a more detailed explanation on this, but we're going to leave this on the default here, 0.0f. When you guys see these equals, it means that you don't necessarily need any of these values here. But let's say you wanted to use noise, then you at least have to get up to this point to say, true, and then you can pretty much be done here. You can just close it out here and you're done. These last two actually aren't required, and the remaining ones aren't required either. So we won't be using them. We'll just leave the default here, the default screen shake here. Again, I encourage you guys, if I scroll down here, just read the description of these effects here. So if we do FOV shake start, you can see all the values. You can see time is still, this was the full intensity one, the fade in time, fade out time, frequency, noise, and just play around with the numbers, see what kind of like effects you can get out of it. But all, like I said, majority of these are pretty well detailed and explain like what all the numbers do. So I highly encourage you guys to look through those. So that's our FOV shake. And now we're going to go ahead and just kind of copy this if statement here. We're going to paste it right below here. And again, I'm just going to set the time for 5 seconds. It's going to do this stuff and then wait 5 seconds. And right here, just to get like kind of a message here, we're going to just type in like FOV shake or something like that. Or we'll do start FOV, and we'll do shake. So just kind of like an indication that, our thing is running here. And then what we want to do is we want to go ahead, we'll clear this effect here. We want to go ahead and close and cancel this effect, right? So what we're going to do is effect underscore FOV shake, and we want to do the fade out. And if you notice, if we read the description of this function, it says the ID of the shake. And you can also put -1 if you just want to fade out all shakes. And then the amount of time that it takes to fade out. So that's what that integer is that this effect returns. They'll get a unique ID that specifies which effect it is. So if you're running multiple shake effects, they'll have multiple IDs, and you might not want to just fade out all the shakes. You might only want to fade out one shake. So you would specify an ID here. So if, let's say in this scenario, we will just go ahead and put the function in. We'll put -1, which just says we'll fade out all effects, and then we'll fade it out over 1 second here, and then we'll close it out, of course, with our semicolon. And this would work. This would fade out the screen and everything. This would fade out the shake effect, and then there'll be no more shake effect. But if you had multiple shake effects going, this would get rid of all of them. So in the event that you don't want this, we have to save the ID that this effect produces. So the way we do that is we're gonna go outside the function to save the value. So we'll say like and we'll name it shake 1, and we'll just go ahead and close that right away with a semicolon. So and now what we're gonna do is we just declared a variable here, but we need to assign it a value. The value we're gonna assign it is the integer here that this is producing. So we're gonna say shake 1 equals, and then effect FOV shake start. So whatever number this returns, it's gonna save it to shake 1. And now when we want to specifically stop this FOV effect, we are gonna put in, instead of -1, we'll just put in shake 1. So now it will stop specifically this effect right here. And again, if you had like multiple shake effects, you could do copy this and you just do, shake 2, and then you would put shake 2 up here as well, or shake 3, whatever it is. Of course, you can do -1, but there are some effects. We actually will talk about one. There are some effects that require you to provide the ID. So it's good to know how to do this. So make sure you know how to do that, because there are some effects that will require an ID and don't accept -1 as an option. So just be aware of that. And we will talk about one here in this video today too. And then again, we're going to do another effect here now. So let's move on from this effect. Some of them are much simpler than that. That's one of the more complicated ones. Let's do a sway. Calls a player sway. I will bring up the function here so you guys can see. This is another long one, and I'm actually going to copy the values from one of the developers' levels, so you guys can kind of see the values they put in. But yeah, here it is. So it's going to be the size of the sway. It's going to be how much time it takes for the effect to fade in, how many sways per second, the angle of the sway, the initial amount of the sway, and there's a lot of values here. Again, a lot of these you kind of just have to play around with. I can explain what they do, but until you actually play around with what these do, you're not gonna really get a feel for it. And for something like this, I just prefer to use what the developers use in their numbers, just because it's more balanced. And if you do mess around with a lot of these camera related effects, you might get some like detaching from the player's body. Like you'll see the player's head. You'll be able to see your own body and your head is somewhere else. So to avoid that, you might want to use some of the developers' numbers, and I will provide the developers' numbers here too. So I'm going to copy this, and you can feel free to copy the numbers here. And I will put all this code in in a Pastebin in the description. So if you need to get it, you can get it. I probably won't go into detail about what every single value does like I normally do. I'll leave that to you guys, or maybe I'll copy and paste the ones from the helper file that the developers provide. But there's just so many effects and so many variables that you can put in. It's going to take some time to do something like that. So I'll just provide my code, and then I'll have you guys just kind of play around with the numbers and see what you guys can do with it. So with that's our sway effect. And so we'll go ahead and label it accordingly. We'll say start sway, and then we can go ahead and move on to the next one here. So we're going to go ahead and again just copy the previous line here, paste another one here. So remember, these are running in 5-second intervals. So we'll get 5 seconds of an FOV shake. We'll get 5 seconds of a fade in, of a sway effect, and we're going to disable the sway effect here. And that's what we're doing, just to kind of showcase a majority of these effects here. So next, we're going to go ahead and stop this sway effect. And again, remember, you should, if there's a specific effect you're interested in, go ahead and type it in, and you can see effect sway, and you can see all the functions, the fade in, fade out, and you can also change some other variables about it or get some information about it. So we just are interested here in the fade out here, because we're going to fade it out now. And as you can see, this one's much simpler. It doesn't require any IDs or anything like that. And the effect sway fade in actually doesn't even return an integer or any numbers or anything like that. It just returns void, which means nothing. So that's again another way you can identify it. So let's go ahead and hit enter here. So we're gonna fade it out over 1 second here, and then we'll go ahead and put our semicolon, and then that should fade out the sway effect. And then now let's go ahead and do the next effect we're gonna be talking about. So next effect is going to be a blur effect. We're going to be talking about another popular one here. So if we type in effect underscore blur, so these are the variables here. And again, you can see this one has the integer. It's returning an integer here. So this one's going to return an ID. And before we look into the start effect, I want to show you guys the fade out effect. So the fade out effect for the effect here. Or effect blur fade out here. This one is, you can see, fade out the instance blur. The instance is removed after fading out, and it takes an ID, but it doesn't specify that it would take a -1, which means that we can't use -1 here to fade out this effect. We will have to use the ID, and this is what I was talking about when we started with this, and I told you guys that they have IDs, and some of them might require it regardless, and they can't use -1. So this is one of them. You can see that we cannot use -1 here, so we will need the ID of the instance. So let's go ahead and back it up here, and then we'll do effect blur start here. And as you can see, again, remember, it returns the integer, so we will save this in a second, but let's go ahead and just fill this out. So it only takes two variables: the amount of how blurry the screen should be from 0 to 1, and the amount of time to fade into that blur. So the amount, I'm just going to put 1.0, so it's going to be pretty blurry. And the amount of time, I'm going to put it fades in over 1 second. So in 1 second, the screen will be completely blurry. And again, we're going to need to save this this value here. So we're going to do int, and we're going to say blur 1. Again, you can name these whatever, but these are pretty simple. It's pretty simple naming scheme here: blur 1, shake 1, and if you have multiple blurs, you can specify the multiple blurs. So blur 1, and then we're going to say up here, we're going to say blur 1 equals, and then we're saving that integer to blur 1 here. And then we can stop it on the next sequence here. So let's go ahead and copy now. Let's move on to the next sequence now. And we will go ahead and stop the effect now. So again, we're going to do effect underscore blur, and we want the fade out here. And the ID is going to be blur 1, and the time to fade out, we'll just say it'll fade out over 1 second. And then we'll save that. And let's change this to blur. We forgot to change this to blur, so let's just say start blur so we can visually see that. And then we want to go ahead and clear this. And next, what we're going to talk about next is going to be a nausea effect. This adds like a green tint around the edge of the screen. I think it's a pretty cool one, and I'm going to go ahead and just put that here for the name. And then we're going to go ahead and do effect. And this is actually one of the simpler ones that we're talking about today. Effect nausea, and there's 3: start, stop, and the spike. I believe spike just kind of makes it get more intense, and start and stop is pretty straightforward. You can see that they're just dashes here, which means that they actually don't need any values. They just start and stop on you clicking this effect. So if we do nausea effect start, and we close it here, that's all we need. We don't need to put any more info there. So let's go ahead and again copy the sequence here. We're gonna add another sequence to the end of this here, another 5 seconds, and we're gonna stop that nausea effect. So as you saw, there was no values that it needed, so we could just say nausea stop, and then put the semicolon there, and then we can go ahead and talk about one more. So this will be the last one we're talking about. Again, I just try to pick some of the more common ones, like like blur and stuff like that. And we're gonna pretty much just the more basic ones and stuff. So next, so let's go ahead and talk about the next one. I think there's two more actually. We got a trail and we got a fade to black effect. So this is gonna be a trail. So we'll do image trail, start image trail. Image trail, and we'll go ahead and do effect, and we'll do underscore image trail. So there's quite a bit for this one here. The image trail kind of creates that kind of like drunk-ish effect where things are like blurry and things look like they're moving. So pretty cool effect. We'll see that when we launch it up. So we're gonna do this image trail start here. And the amount of image trailing, I'm going to do 2.0 here. This is a pretty good amount. And fade in time, we'll fade it in over 1 second. Then stay time. So this one actually doesn't have to be stopped. This one actually stops itself. So we're going to do 5 seconds here since this thing is waiting 5 seconds anyways. So we'll do 5 seconds, and then fade out time, again 1.0 F. We'll fade it out over 1 second here. And this one doesn't need to be stopped, so we actually need to worry about stopping this effect here. Last, we'll talk about one last one here. So we'll go ahead and copy this one, and we will paste it right here. So we're gonna talk about one more. We're gonna talk about the fade to black effect. So we'll go ahead and clear this one right here. And we're gonna go ahead. We don't need to stop the previous one, so we can just go ahead and just move on to the next one we're gonna be talking about. So we're gonna do a effect underscore, and then we're gonna type in fade. And there's fade in and fade out, and this will fade in the screen and it will fade out the screen to black. So we're gonna go ahead and do fade in, or we're gonna do fade out. We're gonna fade out to black. So we're gonna do fade out, and I believe that used a time, right? So we want to put in the time that it's going to fade to black. So we'll fade the screen to black over the course of 1 second, and then we will go ahead and we'll type in here start fade to black, and then we will go ahead and copy this last sequence. And now all we want to do now is just go ahead and stop the fade out here. So we're going to do effect fade in. So it'll be the same thing, fade in. It will fade in over the course of 1 second here, and we're gonna hit save. So there's your barrage of effects. Again, there's a lot more, and you guys can just type in effect and start searching through all of these. You can see these are the ones that we talked about. There's video distortion, there's baby kick, there's bloom, chromatic aberration, DOF, dolly zoom. There's a lot. Tentacles, you can do tentacles on screen, film grain. I don't know about the gamepad color, what exactly that does. Fade the gamepad color, backlight of the PS4 controller. Okay, so this looks like it is for controlling the controller. If you can actually play Amnesia Rebirth with a remote and without keyboard and mouse. So if you do have one connected, this will actually change the color of the controller. You can add a glow. You can add image fade, insanity, lens distortion, radio blur, roll shake, rumble, a lot of stuff. I would encourage you guys to scroll through that and kind of just look at what effects they have and play around with them and stuff. They, for the most part, work like this. And if you let's say wanted to see an effect that a developer use, like we could do, you can always like grab the name of the function here, like effect sway fade in, right? We could do search, find in file. We could do search, find in files, and we can go ahead. It'll copy our text here, and we can search in the script folder of Amnesia Rebirth here. We could do find, and you'll see all the instances where the developers used it. For example, they have one here in player custom effect sway they use it here, and you can see the values that they put. This is actually the one I copied from, and you can see their values. So if you're interested in seeing how the developer used it, what kind of numbers they used, go ahead and do that, and that'll help you find the values. So with that, we're pretty much done, and we can go ahead and launch up the game to test. Again, you can search it. You can search for your functions. You can look at that list of functions, read the descriptions, get to understand the function, play with the numbers, have fun with it. That's pretty much the best way to learn this kind of stuff. So with that, again, let's go ahead and start up a game now and see what these effects look like. All right, guys, here we are in our level. So the trigger area is right here. So as soon as we walk past this this path here, our effects will start to play. So let's go ahead and walk through here, and I'll be moving pretty fast. I might pause the game for here and there just to show you guys. So let's go ahead and step through. So here we go. That's the FOV shake. That's a pretty aggressive shake there. You can see it says start FOV shake there. And then here's the sway. So if we walk here, we can actually see the swaying happening here. There's our blur effect. So everything's blurry now. And blur is gone. Now we have nausea. You can see like the red tint around the edges here. That's our nausea effect. Now image trail. Image trail is like that kind of drunk-ish effect that I was talking about. Really good one. Here's fade to black. So now the screen's fade to black. And we fade right back in. And that does it for all of the effects. So a lot of effects, really cool stuff. That image trail is good stuff. Mixing with the like the fade to black or the blur, like a blur image trail with like a fade out is perfect for like, you know, you falling unconscious or something like that in the event. So in your story. So with that, guys, that does it for effects. Pretty straightforward video, nothing crazy here. There's so many effects, but I kind of wanted to cover effects just so you guys know how to use them and how to start with using them as well. So with that, I hope you guys learned a lot. Again, leave any questions in the comments. You can also join the Discord. Link's always in the description of every video. If you have any more questions, subscribe and leave a like on the video, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. See you guys. Bye.